that he handed the pure form of Sita to Agni Dev in his protection, in the protection of Agni. So she was concealed by Ram with the help of the fire, and in her place, the form that was walking with Sri Ram was the illusioner of Sita. So when it was the illusionary Sita, she got attracted by, and she was not able to realize the game of Ravana in attracting her. Isn't it? So that is why she is attracted. She is not able to discriminate between the game that is being played with her. And this is how the golden deer, when marriage comes in form of golden deer symbolizes the materialistic prosperities in today's world. The materialistic comforts are like golden deer. And they are trying to attract the human beings. We find small children on television, when they see certain things, they demand those things from their parents with that name and brand. We want this type of shoes only. We want this type of things only. So the materialistic comforts, materialistic pleasures are like this golden deer. And because the ordinary form of that illusionary Sita was there, she did not able to otherwise just imagine the one who is the embodiment of purity. How can she come under the influence? She is the embodiment of purity. Purity can never come under the influence of anybody. But because that pure form was given to Agni Dev for Suraksha, and the illusionary Sita was there, the ordinary consciousness. So whenever we human beings are also in our ordinary consciousness, we are not able to recognize the illusions that are there prevailing in the world. And then we ask Ram to get it for me. Wisdom understands the game, but still he tries to fulfill. Sometimes in our prayers, in our meditation, what do we try to tell Supreme Father Ram also? Oh Baba, please get me this, then I won't ask for anything. In our prayers, we also ask for something from God. We may be having everything, but there is still the desire of attaining something. Attaining that golden deer, and we do not know how much problems it may create for us in our lives afterwards. But at that moment we ask from God also, oh God, grant me this wish. So Ram also, seeing the game behind it and how the purpose of his life coming to this world is going to be fulfilled now, he goes. Attacks marriage, runs after that golden deer, hits him, and he comes back to his normal form. But still he does not leave. He shouts in the voice of Sri Ram, Lakshmana, Lakshmana, come. And that is when that deer signifies the temptation. How temptation enables us to become victims. So we also become victims when we are under the influence of temptation. And that is when Sita, the soul is Sita, the daughter of Mother Earth, she does not realize whose voice it is. So we are not able to recognize whether it is my own dictates of the mind or whether it is the dictates of Supreme Father. And we feel as if when I was sitting in my prayers, God also gave me this message. And we are not able to identify whether it is the dictates of my own mind or whether it is the dictates of the Supreme. And we come under the influence. And this is how Sita asked Lakshmana, you should go. Lakshmana was not willing to go. But because of certain words and certain behavior that was done by Sita, he agrees to go. But before he goes, he draws that line, Lakshman Rekha. And Lakshman Rekha means the line of moral values, moral character. He draws that line that you will be safe in this line of moral values and moral character. Do not go out of it. So, Sita was in the hut with the line around her and she was protected. But when Ravan comes, he is again in another form. He knows how to change his form. So he comes in the form of a beggar, a bhikshuk, trying to beg alms. And he was very well aware that I will not be able to enter this line, I would get burnt. Lakshman. Laksh means the aim of life. The aim of life that is given by the Supreme is to follow morality and moral character in our life. But when we divide Lakshman, it is given a Laksh to the Man. Man means the mind. The mind should be protected and it should stay in this line of moral values. And no Ravan can come inside. No evil form can enter our minds, can enter our thoughts. But that is when Ravan asked her to come out, asked the minds to come out of that line of moral character, of morality. And that is how sometimes when we also leave our morality and try to help others in such a way, thinking that, well, this is normal, nothing is bad in this. But we do not realize the pitfall behind it. It is a deceit which is going to deceive us and take us into troubles. And then we regret and repent. Why did I come out of this line of morality? So God also has given us a set of code and conducts for our life. He has also set a line of morality, of moral values. But in Kali Yuga, we find all human beings have crossed this line of moral code and conducts. And that is why we come under the influence of Ravan, and Ravan takes us away. He takes away Sita, and Sita is the soul. The soul comes under the influence of Ravan. Ego. And that is when he is taking her, she starts realizing what mistake I have done. But then nobody can save her. Nobody can help her. And even if Jatayu-like souls come to help her, those who are following the path of peace, they try to come and help. But they are also fatally wounded by Ravana. And they also cannot do anything to help Sita, those who have crossed their lines of moral code and conducts. Today we find the youngsters, how they get entangled in the viciousness. And by the time they realize, it's very bad, their dressing is such, their company is such, their attitudes are such, whatever they see on the television is such, and this makes them cross that line of moral code and conducts. And that is why they become victims. Nobody can help them. They become victims of drugs. They become victims of so many other things. And nobody can help them to come out of it. It takes a long time to bring them back, like Sita, to bring them back. So as he was taken, then Sri Ram and Lakshman come to look for Sita, and they find Jatayu lying there. And the subtle form of Jatayu emerges and gives them the complete news of where and who has taken Sita. So Sri Ram and Lakshman goes further to look for Sita. And as they go further, when we also get the spiritual understanding, get deep realization, from here when you will go, you will try to look for those Sitas who are entangled in Ravan's cage, isn't it? Those who have crossed their lines of moral code and conduct. You can become the embodiment of wisdom and renunciation like Ram and Lakshman, and look for them and bring them back on the right path of code and conduct. So as they go further to look for those souls, we find that they meet Shabri. Shabri is such a character, very poor in real life, but she wanted to entertain Ram by offering him the plums. She tasted each one of them to ensure that they were sweet and they should be eaten by Lord Rama. Similarly, today also we find there are such souls in the world, very poor maybe, materialistically, but they have so much of bhavna, so much of feelings and dedication for Paramatma, for the Supreme. Each and everything whatever small they have, they would collect, they would keep with them, thinking whenever we'll find God, we shall give him that which we have saved in our life. And that is why the Lord is also known as Garib Nivas, the one who is the protector of the poor, the one who loves the poor, who has the true bhavna in them, and who wants to offer all that they have to the Supreme. God also listens to their things. And they are the ones sometimes to direct the souls who are with wisdom also what they should do in their life. This is how she directs Sri Ram to go to Rishimak Parvat, where he would meet Hanuman, his devotee. So similarly, those souls who have got spirituality and wisdom, these poor souls, sometimes they become instruments to direct, to show us the path, so that we find those devotees of Sri Ram, the Supreme Being. And as they move forward, they find Hanuman, who is the embodiment of devotion, who is a friend of Sugriva. Hanuman had some mighty powers in him. And Hanuman means the one who has conquered ego. Hanuman or uska hanan karne wala. Man, respect. And Anuman, doubts. The one who had conquered doubts and ego from his life. He is known to be Hanuman. Man ka hanan karne wala. Which means, or the embodiment of selfless service. And not only that, one who had courage and one whose intellect was surrendered to God. He had conquered ego and assumptions from his life. So this slide shows that at least if we cannot become the embodiment of wisdom like Sri Ram, at least let us become the embodiment of selfless service like Hanuman. Can't we become like Hanuman? The embodiment of devotion, the embodiment of selfless service, the embodiment of having the surrendered intellect and courage to become the helpers of God, become the helpers of Sri Ram, the Supreme Being. So let us become like Hanuman. Hanuman is shown in the form of a monkey because the intellect sometimes jumps here and there. The mind jumps like a monkey. So although our mind may be jumping here and there, but if we have these characters, then also we can become true companions and true helpers of God as well. So let us become like Hanuman. And he takes them to Sugriva, who is his friend, and introduces to him. And Sugriv come at the feet of Sri Ram. It is said, whoever soul comes at the feet of Supreme Being, जो आत्मा प्रभु की शरण में आए एक बार, the one who comes in his sharan, in his protection, in his canopy, God promises him to liberate him, to give him the rights that he had lost. So similarly, if we are able to come in the company of God, be companions or helpers of God, God promises us also to get our rights. It is said that Sugriva had lost his kingdom and his wife, and his brother Bali only had removed him from his kingdom and taken over his kingdom. Now Bali was very powerful, but full of ego and always engaged in other activities. So similarly, God also promised Sugriva to get back his kingdom, to overcome Bali, and to get back whatever he had lost. Similarly, if we become the helpers of God, God also promises us so many things, and his promise are not false promise. His promise are always that which he gives to us. So this is how he destroys ego and lust and gives back the kingdom of self-control to Sugriva. Once Sugriva is crowned prince again of his kingdom of Kishkinda, it is said that all the devtas, the deities also witness that ceremony, and he again regains his self-control, and the 5 elements of nature also help him to maintain the law and order in his kingdom. But after that, he forgets his promise. God fulfilled his promise, but Sugriva forgot his promise because he was so much in the entertainment. And that is when, sometimes when we also become helpers of God, but if we forget our promise, God fulfills his promise, but at the same time, he takes or he makes us realize that there is something you have promised to me also. And now fulfill that promise again. So this is how he reminds him of his promise. And we can see that how he is able to gain back his kingdom, and not only that, but then they sit and discuss now what to do, how to get Sita back from Ravana's clutches. And it is said Hanuman had so many powers in him, subtle powers, but he had forgotten. He had forgotten the powers that he had, that he was able to jump the ocean also. He could do the impossible possible because of his surrendered intellect and the devotion that he had. And when he gets the blessings of the Supreme, his intellect is granted and people remind him that you have such powers, you can do this. So now in this path of spirituality also, the soul has immense potential, but we have also forgotten our potential. So God is reminding us. Brothers and sisters are reminding us what potential we also possess. We have so much of potential to do the impossible possible, and nothing is there that we cannot do. But if we also surrender our intellect to God, He will take care of it. He will take care of whatever obstacles will come on our path, and He will bless us. This is how He had blessed Hanuman also And he sent him, chose him to be his most faithful and most loyal doot, and sent him to Lanka. When he is able to focus his mind and intellect, and when he is able to have that concentration, because of the devotion, concentration and focus of mind and intellect, he can do the gigantic task also. If we also keep our mind focused on God, concentrated on God, and with the devotion in the heart, we are also able to do the impossible possible in today's world. And this is how, when he is trying to cross the ocean, the first thing that comes in his path is Mount Menak. It rises from the ocean. And he asked Hanuman, why don't you take some rest? Why don't you stay here for some time and then go onwards on your journey? So similarly, when we also become the helpers of God, there are certain elements that would come in our path also, asking us to rest. Now, in the path of a Purusharthi, rest is the greatest enemy, which I told you the other day also, that the time for God to distribute fortune is morning hours, Amrit Vela, and the time for Maya is also there. Why don't you rest for 5 minutes? And once we rest for 5 minutes, what happens? The Amrit Vela is gone. It is already 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock we open our eyes. So the time period goes by. So for a Purusharthi, for an effort maker in the path of spirituality, rest is the greatest enemy. And if we also start taking rest in our lives, we can never achieve our goals. We can never achieve our destination. So he overcomes rest, overcomes Mount Menak also, and proceeds further. And when he proceeds further, there is another one that comes up, Sursa and Sihika. Sursa and Sihika were said to be blessed. And anyone who would cross that ocean had to go through their mouth. And that is when they would become their victims. So similarly also in the path of effort making, on the path of spirituality, when we are making efforts, when we are proceeding, Sursa means jealousy, ill feeling. And Sihika means competition. These two come up in our lives also, jealousy and competition. And no one can be saved from these two, because they come in subtle way that we are hardly able to identify them, and they are blessed. They keep their mouths open. Competition and jealousy are always there with their mouths open, and we have to go from the mouth. And that is when they try to kill us. That is why we find in this age of competition, so many people become victims. When they are not able to achieve their destination, and the competition is so great, they end up their lives. They kill themselves. They commit suicide. And jealousy is also such that makes them their victims. So Sursa and Sihika means jealousy and competition. These two are the greatest barrier for a person who is trying to follow the path of spirituality. The greatest hindrance. But Hanuman, a person who was focused, a person who is concentrated and has a surrendered intellect and courage, he overcomes these two also and moves further on his path of spirituality to attain Sita, to look for Sita. And as he goes, reaches the kingdom of Ravan, and is trying to look for Sita, and then in Ashok Vatika, the garden, he sees Sita sitting underneath a tree. Ashoka means where there is no shoka. Shoka means grief, sorrow, unhappiness does not prevail there. In the materialistic comforts, human beings feel there is no grief, no sorrow when we have the materialistic comforts. But we find that although it was Ashoka garden, Sita was sitting there in Shoka, in grief. Isn't it? So similarly, although staying and living in this world of physical comforts, materialistic prosperities, but the soul are not experiencing true happiness in their lives. And they are also sitting in Shoka. Isn't it? So the materialistic comforts are temporary. They give temporary happiness, but finally they make the prisoners. That they cannot leave those materialistic comforts and they cannot enjoy happiness as well. Then they start thinking, it was better we did not have these comforts. We were more happy then. But now nothing can be done. So similarly, we find that this world where the materialistic comforts are, once we become victims of them, we cannot lead a life of happiness also, and we cannot let them go also. This is how we become prisoners. And we are sitting in the Ashoka garden, in Shoka, in the remembrance of God. Oh God, why don't you come and liberate us from this cage, which is of gold, but it is not giving us happiness. And Ravan comes there, and he still asks Sita, you should become mine. You should come under the influence of mine. But Sita just takes up a grass. A grass is in her hands, and she challenges Ram also. I will not become yours, and you cannot enter, or you cannot come beyond this grass, because that is the power that I possess, and I can burn you into ashes. So similarly, living in this world of materialistic pleasures, all comforts, if we really want to get out, if we really want to experience happiness, we also have to increase our power of purity, our aura of purity. Then we'll be safe. We'll be safe from all sorts of evils that are being surrounding us. Because those who are in materialistic pleasures, their enemies are also more. And they try to attack them in different ways. But if we have that spiritual aura, and the aura is more, then we can challenge such Ravans also, such demoralized human beings as well, who try to bring us under various types of pressures. We would not come under their influence. So this is how Ravan could also not do anything to her, and he leaves, and that is when Hanuman realizes and comes down, shows him the ring that was given by Rama, and the one who is surrendered intellect and has devotion, Sita, the embodiment of purity, is able to recognize him, that this is no other than a messenger from God. So when the messenger from God comes, such souls who are in grief, who have all the pleasures but are in grief, they also recognize those messengers. When you came here, there was some messenger who had come up to you. Why don't you come to Mount Abu? Had come with the message of God, showed you his ring, and that is why you felt, yes, let us go and visit this place. So similarly, those who become messengers, so now when you go from here, you will become the true Hanumans for others. And you have to bring those also who are lost in that Ashoka Vatika, who are lost in that materialistic world with all comforts. but who are in grief and pain and sorrow. You have to give the message of God that you have heard here after going from here. And they will also, those who are the embodiment of devotion, they will realize the message. And this is the greatest act of charitable, or this is the true way you can become Hanuman or the helpers of God in bringing those Sitas out of those cages and enlightening them. As we go further, we find that after Hanuman recognizes Sita and gives the message, then he thought of destroying that Ashoka Vatika. So as he was trying to destroy the Ashoka Vatika, Meghnad comes and captures him. And he takes him in front of Ravana. But Hanuman was courageous and he wanted to see Ravan, who Ravan is and how he is. So because of his qualities and his virtues, he was not at all afraid of anybody. Those who are afraid can never become Hanumans. If you are afraid that if we go from here and if we give this message of God, we don't know what people will tell us, so then you can never become Hanuman. So you have to challenge those Ravans also on the basis of the qualities and virtues that you have promised here in front of God, that we shall live such a life. And you should have the courage to face those evil forces as well, the negative forces as well. Because the one step you take to perform a benevolent act, the devils, the negative forces will try to stop you. Don't do this. They will try to stop you. But don't be afraid of them. These are the test papers for you to prove your worthiness. And this is how, when he is taken in front of Ravana, Ravana thinks of punishing him, so he tries to put fire to his tail. And what does he do? He converts that threat also into an opportunity. He burns Lanka, isn't it? So those souls who are not afraid, they turn threats into opportunities. And they progress in this path of spirituality also. Nothing can stop them. They are able to damage. Lanka means they are able to damage the ego consciousness of the evil forces. And they challenge them as well. So it was also a damage caused to the ego of Ravan. So then it is said that he takes a vow of fighting with Sri Ram also. And then as Hanuman goes away, Mandodari tries to convince Ravana. Just imagine, one devotee of Rama can cause you so much of damage. The damage to your ego. Just think of Sri Ram. He is the mighty one. But he was so egoistic. And a person in the world who is egoistic, he can never understand the message of God. He can never understand the signals of God. And this is how even if somebody tries to give them good advice, they do not listen to that advice. And this is how he does not listen to Mandodari also, a person of good character, but is not able to listen because of his egoistic nature. Vibhishan tries to give him the advice, but he is so egoistic and he says, I will have a bloodshed only. And nobody can avoid this. And he kicks Vibhishana also. Vibhishana is also another devotee. So those devotees, they have to suffer something when they become the helpers in the path of spirituality or in the path of the supreme consciousness. But when he kicked Vibhishana, he landed at the feet of Sri Ram. And when he landed at the feet of Sri Ram, again Ram promises him to give his kingdom. He knew that Vibhishana has stayed in the kingdom of Ravan just like the tongue is staying in between the 32 teeth, where all the evil forces are there and he could not do, but still he had remembered me. So God also is indebted to the devotion of Vibhishana. So similarly, if we also stay amongst those people who are of the devilish character, but still if we live like the tongue in between the 32 teeth, safe, on the basis of the devotion and the true heart, God becomes indebted to us also. And He promises us, and this is how, on the basis of the wisdom and renunciation, with those powers, He tries to protect him in every way. And He grants him the promises. After that, He sends Angad as a messenger to Ravan, finally caution him whether he wants to return Sita or not. But he insults Angada, does not give him a seat, and he created his own seat. In today's world also, people will not give you the seat of self-respect because they do not have respect. But you will have to create your own self-respect and be seated on this seat of self-respect. And when we sit on this seat of self-respect, nobody can do any harm to us. Nobody can shake our feet from the path of spirituality. That is why it is said, when Angad put his feet, when he put his leg and he challenged Ravan, if you are so mighty, just move my feet from here and I will tell Rama also to surrender against you. And when Ravan came to move his feet, he said, you are such a foolish one, trying to touch my feet. Why don't you touch the feet of Sri Ram only? So those who are egoistic, they hardly realize what they are doing. They degrade so much to such a level that they are ready to catch the feet or support of such souls instead of going into the canopy of the Supreme Being. So Angada was the one who had self-respect. So although Ravan tried to tell him so many stories, he had killed your father, he had done this to you, he has done injustice to you, how can you give him support? But he never came under the influence of the egoistic nature. So ego and self-respect cannot go together. Either a person is sitting on the seat of ego, either he is sitting on the seat of self-respect. So it is up to us which seat we want to adopt in our life, whether we want to sit, create our own self-respect and sit on that seat, or whether we want to sit on the throne of ego, which makes us the slave. He was ready to fall at his feet and touch his feet. This shows the slave, how he is ready to become the slave of anything. So let us not become the slave, but create our self-respect and sit on the seat of self-respect. This is the self-respect God gives us. Who you are. Know thyself. Realize thyself. And when He gives us this realization, we are able to elevate ourselves. And that seat is higher than the throne of ego. It is higher. And we are sitting on a high seat. And this is how, when he goes back with the message of Ravan that he is not ready to give you Sita ji, so he asks for the way from the ocean. He pulls out his arrow to get the road to Lanka, and that is when it is said the gods and goddesses arrive from the ocean and advise him, "Oh Rama, why don't you worship Shiva? Because he is all powerful. You have to take divine powers from him if you want to overcome Ravan, because Ravan has also gained the powers from Shiva. So first you will have to match yourself. Then only you can overcome him." So after receiving this wisdom from the gods and goddesses, it is said that soul also realizes, and again with the power of yoga, he worships Shiva. So when Shiva is being worshipped by Rama, that is why it is known as Rameshwara, where Ram also worshipped Shiva. So the Lord of Sri Ram is also Shiva, the God of the gods, the gods and goddesses. So Sri Ram is gods and goddesses, but the God of the gods and goddesses is Shiva. And this is how Shiva grants him the divine powers, more powerful powers, in order to overcome Ravan. So until and unless in the end we also have to come to Shiva only, then only will be granted with those powers, so that we are able to overcome those negative forces, negative elements from the society also, and again become the helpers of the Supreme Being in establishing the golden aged world and liberating all the Sitas from the cage of Ravan, from the Ashok Vatika, so that we take them back into that kingdom of heaven, that is Ram Rajya. And this is how God establishes Ram Rajya. So it is the story of the three Rams, the story of Atma Ram, the story of the Supreme Ram, and the story of the son of Dashrath. And with these words I end here. Thank you very much. Om Shanti.
संतोषशील बसेगा मन में, स्नेह भरा होगा जन जन में, शांति सुधा फिर से बरसेगी, धन संतोषशील बसेगा मन में, स्नेह भरा होगा जन जन में, शांति सुधा फिर से बरसेगी, धन बन कर जन जीवन में, कण कण पावन बन जाएगा, कण कण पावन बन जाएगा, सुवर्ण प्रभात अब आएगा, सुवर्ण प्रभात अब आएगा। सत्य अहिंसा की जय होगी, हर आत्मा सुख में निर्भय होगी, प्रकृति सेवक बन जाएगी,